Welcome to yet another Wynter Workshop event. Today, the topic is how to get more budget for research. Now, why does that matter? It matters because the point of view is that your target market should be the primary input on how you run your revenue strategy. And what is revenue strategy? It's a bunch of things, including who are we targeting? Like, who cares the most about what we have to offer, about our differentiated value, and other things about the ICP. Then, what is the desired value of our target customers? What do they want? What is the pain that they feel in their everyday workflows? They're like, I wish this was different. We need to know this stuff. So our messaging and positioning and how we are communicating our differentiation comes from the customers. So our differentiation, our space, our positioning fits what they're looking for, and is obviously differentiated from other players as well. But target customer informs that. Also the channels. Of course, we all do LinkedIn ads and Google ads and all. But what about the unsaturated channels? Who is our ICP influenced by? What communities are they a part of? What newsletters do they read, and so on and so forth? So we need to know this stuff so we can do better marketing. If our go-to-market budget, sales plus marketing, is let's say it's $5 million or whatever it is, if we spend even 1% of it, or less, 0.5% of it on research, it makes the rest of the budget just go further. So that's why we're here. That's why we're talking about it. I was ranting now a whole bunch. Can you guys give me some feedback? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Maybe I was just speaking to the void here. So who's here? Janina is here, and Laurie and Michael and Benjamin. Okie dokie. Barb, thanks for feedback. Great. Okay, so the way we're going to do it, we have three speakers that are going to share their personal experience on what has worked for them to get more budget, which arguments work, which don't, and so on and so forth. So first up, we have Hannah Shamji. Hannah, please join me on the stage if you're around.
Hello.
Right. Hello, wonderful to see you.
Likewise, I'm excited to talk about this.
And I am excited to learn from your experience. So I'm just going to get out of the way. You share your slides, and I'll join you again on the stage once you're done sharing your wisdom. All right, I'll see you in a bit.
Sounds good. All right. I'm going to share my... I'm just sharing my screen here. Give me a sec. And here we go. So I am, as this is loading here, I'm Hannah. I'm a consumer psychologist. This is a topic that doesn't get a lot of airtime, so I am really excited to be here and to speak about it. I've been a qualitative researcher in the marketing space for about 5 years. So I've heard a lot of pushback, less so now, but my thing is taking a minute to load, and I'm not sure why. Here we go. Kidding, we're back on. All right. So everyone can see my screen? Yes, no in the chat? Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to share my experience. Really important topic. Glad we're giving it some airtime here. I want to start here. This is something I think we've all heard. I came into the marketing space believing that companies just don't want research, right? We've heard some version of this before. And back in 2020, I was focused on customer research. I was head of research at Copy Hackers, a copywriting agency. And I heard all of the objections, right? We just need the copy. We don't have time for research. We already know our customers. And I didn't really have a reason to think differently. I remember being like, well, research is my whole job here. Am I going to have a job if none of these clients want research? Until one day, and I remember this so clearly, I was on the call with a client who was willing to do research. And I asked him if he had done anything existing. And he said, we just paid a couple guys 10K to run a survey. I will send you the results. Now on the call, I kept composure, but like my jaw dropped to the floor inside. Like I had never heard of anyone not only willing to do research, but actually recognizing the value enough that they would pay a separate company to do it. And this was a huge turning moment for me. It showed me that there is a market for customer research. I'm just on the wrong side of the fence here. And so I've been figuring out how to override this pushback. And I want to share some lessons with you now being on the other side of this fence, around how to get buy-in on customer research. So first lesson, change the conversation. I was so gung-ho about research. It's my whole thing. Been doing this for 12 years in a bunch of different industries. So I was talking about research all the time. Like that was my hook. Um, and I quickly learned I needed to stop selling research. Like doing research is not the point. Nobody wants research, and for good reason, right? Like, what's the point of just having it? What you really want is not so much research, but outcomes. So even me as a researcher, I don't want to just do research. I don't want it to just sit there on Google Drive and be like a nice to have or a nice to know. I want to actually have the research used to drive decisions. And so the moment I started speaking about research, like not at all, considering it like a dirty word, and talking more about the outcomes, research kind of became the way to get there. So if you think about it, really, research is just the process. It's the how, right? The interviews, the surveys, analysis, product reviews, voice of customer data, all of that is how, and how is kind of irrelevant. Like, however we get there, what we're really concerned about are outcomes. How do we get the conversions or the signups or the clicks or the value prop or standing out? This is really the end goal. This is the whole reason we do research. So unless we can tie research to one of these, there's no point in doing it anyway. So I dropped talking about research and really focused on the actual outcomes, which is what my boss, my client, whoever it is, the colleague is caring about anyway. Part of this is exposing the risk of life without research. So again, building like a vocab to talk about research without using the word research, because the risk of research also has business implications. So I would speak about it to say, well, we need to eliminate blind spots. Let's avoid guessing, stop wasting time on dead ends. Let's map the user landscape, validate customer understanding. All of these imply research, but again, you don't see the word research on the screen here once, right? There is no indication of how are we going to get there. This is just the impact of the research, which is really, really important. These are kind of the hooks that I found were really successful to get clients, my boss, colleagues on the page, same page with doing research. All right. Second lesson here was I needed to introduce the gap. So we all have this gap. We all have a sense of like what we know, what we think we know being way, way bigger. This is not exclusive just to like leadership, right? We all have this bias. The thing is, I needed to expose this in order to justify research. I wanted to get out of the conversation of, well, we already know our customers. We already have that information, because the level of granularity that I needed with research and the level of confidence that I knew research could bring wasn't what they knew. So how do you expose this? How do you expose this without being confrontational? Because if you talk about what you know and what you don't know, you're still in the research conversation, right? You're still debating on the value of research and using the word research in the dialogue. So I stopped saying things like, we need to talk to customers, let's run a survey, we should do some user testing, because even if I got them aligned on outcomes, it would kind of backpedal as soon as I talked about this, because this sounds like a time suck, right? This sounds like a lot of meandering to get to the point. So instead, I exposed the need for research in the context of the problem we wanted to solve, which sounds like, wait, so who's coming to the page? Do we know? We should fact check that with real customers so we're not guessing at messaging, and make sure we're leaning on data. Again, I'm not mentioning research here, but I'm bringing it up in the context of a very specific problem. It's not, let's just talk to customers and run a survey. It's, do we know this? Do we have this insight? Because if we're going to optimize something, we need this insight to be able to do it effectively, right? Now, research is suddenly positioned as the shortest path from where you are. And hey, we have all of these gaps we need to fill to get to where we want to go. Still don't have to use the word research here, right? We're still kind of drawing the line without getting into the process, purely talking about the business, driving decisions, making smarter, more effective data-driven decisions. Third lesson here, and this is the last one I'll share with you, is that research is vague. So you want to make its trade-off really clear. At some point in the conversation, research is going to be mentioned and the word will be used. If people are on the fence, I find you really want to spell out what they're choosing. So a lot of times we can think the question is like, should we do research or not? Should we talk to customers or not? Should we survey customers or not? But that's not really the right question, because this is still in the domain of doing research, right? It's still talking about research. And that means we're competing with my definition of research and your definition of research, my definition of the impact of research and your definition of the impact. And if you think research is just taking time and taking longer to get where you want to go, we're already lost, right? We're already at a downfall here. So this is not the right question. What we want to do instead is talk more about strategy versus no strategy. Strategy has a lot more weight when it comes to as a word in comparison to research. But this is really what research drives, right? Research creates and builds a strategy that is rooted in data. So if you don't have that, if you don't have research, you can argue that you don't really have a strategy. So I will actually create a a little table here to spell out the differences. That, well, if we're saying no to research, what we're really saying is yes or no to strategy. And what does that mean? Well, it means that we have different objectives. So if we're saying yes to strategy, then we can focus on things like conversions or signups or building a value prop that's customer centric. But if we don't have strategy, well, now our focus is just completion, right? We're just focusing on getting the thing done as quickly as possible. Laying it out like this makes the decision much more clear, because then you can add other pillars to it. So, well, what's the trade-off? Well, if we're focusing on creating a strategy, maybe we have to trade off on speed. It's not going to go as fast. But if we don't have strategy, we're compromising results, right? We're not going to be able to say this, the goal here is conversions, because it just isn't. And then spelling that out even further, what does that mean in terms of the time to messaging? Well, we're looking at like 5 weeks versus 2 weeks. So I will very literally create a table like this to sort of clarify the decisions people are making when they are deciding yes or no to research. And you can add a lot more here, right? Like, this is something that I use as a template in a proposal or following a discussion, but you can add more nuance here. You can change what the objective is. You can make it really clear with other sort of variables what the decision is. And this also keeps the scope clear, right? A lot of times with research, it can feel kind of like, well, what are we getting in the end? And now you have a very clear objective and a very clear direction for the research. It's not just airy-fairy. So this kind of hits two birds with one stone, something that I found to be really, really effective and change the conversation with research, and also make it a bit more tangible. It's not just the conversation, but this is something actually you can follow up with that I found to be really helpful. I'm gonna end it here. I love this comic. I feel like it's such a good indication of like everybody wants to go faster and nobody wants to actually stop and do the work to get them to move faster. But it really is a game of shifting perspectives, because we're all on the same page here. It's less about doing research and not, and more about getting to our objective. What is it that we actually want to get done? And research can get us there faster, right? It really is that slowing down to speed up. So I'll leave it here. That is, these are kind of my core tips that I kind of stand by when it comes to selling and getting buy-in for research, and they've been really effective for me. Any questions? Let me open up the chat here.
Yo. Yes, excellent. Thank you, Hannah, so much. So to sum up, one of the key things that I heard was don't sell research because it's the how, sell the outcome.
Absolutely.
Right? You sell the strategy, you sell the next steps.
Absolutely. Yeah. What are you going to do with the research? What decision does the research drive? Sell that. And then
You're
the
going to go
research
up
is kind of irrelevant.
yeah. You go up the value chain where research is raw materials.
Yep.
It's timber, it's lumber. And what the research enables is the furniture.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Hannah, for coming on. And everybody give Hannah a follow. She shares really good research stuff on social, Twitter, LinkedIn. I'll see you around, Hannah.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Okay. So our next esteemed guest is somebody who's on the inside. Ismail Madni is a senior director of product marketing at Mimecast, working on monetization strategy, things like that. So advocating for more research budget on the inside. Here's our inside man with inside information. Ismail, can you hear me? Hello? Knock, knock. Is this thing on? No? No audio. Settings. Change your microphone, change your thing. Now you're on mute. We'll figure it out. This is just proof that this is a live show.
Exactly. Can you hear me okay?
Now we're talking. Yes. Can hear you great, dude.
Okay. Good to see you again. Good to be here. I love that we're matching shirts today.
That's right. You got my smoke signals that I was sending from my backyard.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll get out of your way. You share your wisdom, and I'll see you in a bit.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for having me here. Just a while, but when you go live, you just never know. All right. Can you hear me okay?
Audio now. Ismail, can you hear me? Something went wrong.
Okay, how about now?
Now
the microphones keep.
Now it's back. Okay, great.
Yeah, it's funny. I've got 4 different microphones, and they like to just compete with each other. So we're going to make it easy and simple here. So if it happens again, let me know. So anyhow, as I stated, I'm on the inside. I have done research for years now, and have had to, for lack of a better term, beg for funding each time I do it. Again, I'm a SaaS pricing leader. I tend to start pricing functions or be pricing strategy hire number 1. I started at Envision, if you remember the design tool for product design, Okta, and Mimecast today, which is an email security company that I've been at for about a year and a half. I've done over 100 customer research projects focused on pricing and packaging. This is over the last 8-9 years now, since 2015. Again, these are primarily focused on how do we price, what do our packages look like, how do we get someone to upgrade from a free plan to a paid plan, what features do we put where. Some of the products I've worked on LastPass, did research on that in 2017, a very large project when I was with the GoTo Log Me In products. GoToMeeting was absolutely one of them. At Okta, our customer identity products. Envision, that may be one of the projects I'm most proud of. And even here at Mimecast, pricing and packaging out what we offer as well. To me, research is the foundation of great pricing and packaging. But again, as we've talked about and why we're here, it's not only critical, but it costs time and money. And again, I loved Hannah's slide there, talking about tying it to strategy, because ultimately that's fundamental with it, to get your strategy out, to move quickly, but you absolutely need research, and research takes time, and most importantly, good research costs money. So again, what do we do? How do we do this? 7 years ago, 6 years ago, 8 years ago, when I first started doing this, it was pretty easy for me to get funding for research projects. But I also didn't know as much, and we're in a different environment. I would say even in 2018, I started having to ask for more funding. There wasn't just a set aside research budget that different groups had. And in particular at Envision was where I needed to start making even bigger asks as I understood the importance of third-party responses. So I've learned a few things over the year in getting budget holders to actually open up the wallet and give me funds to research these. And these are usually 5-figure, and in some cases, they've been 6-figure asks. So number one, I always say tie any research budget ask to a specific revenue outcome. Again, Hannah was talking about strategy and what will you do with it. And I love the analogy of these are the raw materials to build the furniture. I do my best to tie it not only to the strategy overall, but what do we believe will be the revenue outcome of this? We will be able to drive X amount of more conversions, which will lead to Y more dollars. We'll be able to use this research to understand value drivers of our free to paid users and be able to convert more free users into a paid plan that we believe we can charge more for. So I am always focused on actual dollars and taking insights we may already have to do that. The second thing that I have always come to the table with when making these asks is a detailed and specific research plan. And I'll show you an example in a minute here of all of these. But one of the things that happens is you'll ask for research money. You'll say, hey, I need $50K to do some user research and run a conjoint and interview people. It's going to cost $50K. But your budget holders, the people who have the money, are unsure of, what are you exactly doing? What is a conjoint? Why are you interviewing 10 people? Why not 5 or why not 50? I have always gone to the table with the research plan first, meaning what are the objectives and when are we going to do what? How fast is this going to be? When will we have insights and recommendations? Again, I'll show an example in a minute and what are the methods we'll be using. And then finally, what's worked is cross-functional allies to advocate. I don't want to be the only one asking for money. I want my partners in product marketing, in sales and finance, really advocating to the folks who own the budget as to why this is important, how they are helping out. So making sure they are involved in the research is important, but how they're helping and making this a real cross-functional effort, not just you, the individual researcher. Why it's difficult, again, it often costs 5 to 6 figures. It takes time to do. Often my research projects will take minimum 6 weeks, and that's if we nail everything, usually a quarter, and in some cases it's taken 2 quarters. And again, it's difficult for budget leaders to understand why this is needed, in particular in areas they may not understand. I know UX researchers can have difficulty in trying to explain to some someone, and not to pick on finance, but that's why we're here, right? As to why you need to do usability research, why you need your admin dashboard to have gone through testing, and users actually going through it. In my case, someone's like, hey, why don't we just look at what our competitors are doing? Go to their website. Why do we need to do all this research? So I have to be willing to explain to these budget holders the why. And that's, again, what I just showed. So let me give an example. Again, this is a project I'm very proud of. I know Envision just made an announcement yesterday and isn't quite the company it was a few years ago, but this is one where our CMO at the time even said at the end, it was one of the best projects he'd seen. We really wanted to understand our customer segments, what are the jobs they needed to get done, what were their value drivers, and what were they willing to pay for a digital product design product. And it was a very large ask that was going to take time. So we had to get a little creative to fund this as well. As quotes started coming back in the 300, 400, 500K range. And I was told, no, you're not going to get 300, 400, 500K from some of the bigger consulting shops. We actually found ways to bring part of the research in-house, do it ourselves, but also use the money that we could get. We ended up getting 50K to get better quality respondents, to get more respondents, to source from various sources, and also use someone who offers research services to actually help train us a bit and be more of a consultant and pay them a little less. So we're able to do this at about 1/5 of the cost we initially thought. And again, in my mind, it was very successful. We came to the table with a specific set of objectives and key questions. Again, this is a slide that I showed our executive team at the time. We want to understand customer segments and align our pricing and packaging strategy to meet the needs and willingness to pay of our segments. We had key business questions ready to go that we wanted answered in our study. We had a detailed research plan all the way to when there would be specific limits and price points. Again, you can see that we have 1 to 2 weeks or 2 to 3 weeks and exactly what we're doing. And we were trying to run as many different things in parallel as possible. We didn't want some linear models. So this actually was very powerful because we could tie, this is what our research is doing, to a milestone in the product development process. And then finally, it actually came out pretty well once we got the funding and were able to do this. We were able to come back to the table with exactly what we learned, real insights, proposed a specific plan for our pricing and packaging, and give the business something that was very valuable. And again, these were the segments we came up with at the end. These were very specific, which then led us to build packages that tied to these segments, price points that worked for these segments. It was very cross-functional. So again, in summary, I would say tie any research budget ask to a specific revenue outcome. In some cases, it may be difficult, and I think Hannah did a great job of illustrating the strategy and the direction, but tying it there. Have a detailed and specific research plan. Do not just come to the table with, hey, we might need 30,000 or we might need this amount. Show exactly what is going to be done, when, by whom, and then use cross-functional allies to be your advocate. And again, that will really help get funding going forward. All right. Any questions? Thoughts?
Yo. Thank you so much, Ismail.
Hey.
I love the idea of tie any research budget to a specific revenue outcome. Now, question is, how specific do you need to get here? Because like nobody has a magic mirror. How do I know the revenue impact?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I always give ranges. So in this case here, we said in the hypothesis type manner, we believe we will be able to generate $4 to $5 million over the next 12 months with pricing and packaging aligned to our customer segments. That was essentially the statement. And that had a little bit of backup in terms of some of the other research that we've been able to do without a budget, what I call desktop research. Again, looking at competitors, just understanding your customers, looking in your Salesforce notes about why you won a deal or why you lost a deal. There's a lot of research you can do already to come to the table and develop a hypothesis of what a revenue outcome could be.
Patrick is commenting that detailed plan is a tough one for those who haven't done that before. So is there a template? Like, how do we go about creating that plan? What does it look like?
That is a very excellent point. I do believe there are research templates out there for your specific area. I've created them primarily for pricing. I have a whole methodology, but I know some of the stars of the UX world will have specific templates and how to go about research and really working backwards from what is the outcome, the strategy, etc., to coming up with it. So certainly there are templates that you can use. Also, if you're going to go via a third-party route, which oftentimes I have to do, such as, I work with GLG quite a bit or Alpha Sites. They will help me come up with a detailed research plan as well that I could present. And I'll usually do the work of speaking with third-party folks first before going to do a budget ask.
All right. Well, as a follow-up to this event, I'll see if I can find some templates from either our esteemed speakers or elsewhere on the internet, and I'll share it with you over email as a follow-up. Okay, Ismail, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody give him a follow. And
I appreciate it. Thank you.
See you in the future, dude.
Absolutely. I'll see you in person, I hope, very soon. Take care.
All right. Yeah, Ismail and I, we're both in Austin, but we haven't met yet. Okie dokie. Next up, we have Alli Blum. Alli, please join me on the stage here.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can see you.
Wonderful.
Is that a pumpkin on your shelf?
Yes, I've got 2 pumpkins. They popped up in my backyard. So I picked them.
Oh, they're even real.
Yeah, they're real.
Wonderful. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Alli here now is a head of product for hire, but you've been on the inside also for many, many years.
Yes. I've had a chance to work with teams like Mural, with Android HQ, with Atlassian, and with a fintech company called Autobooks.
All right. So you combine your expertise from both worlds, being on the consulting side, on the inside. So looking forward to what you have to say. So
Excellent.
I'll get out of your way and I'll join you after.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you all for joining. Let me do the screen share dance. Let's see. Okay. Slideshow, presenter view. Okay. You can all see the presentation? Okay, cool. You'll tell me if you can't, right? Yes, cool, awesome, thumbs up, great. Okay, excellent. So as Pat mentioned, I have been working with SaaS companies across different departments and in both fractional roles, really embedded with teams and more of a consultant. Here's the research insights we found. Here's what we did. I've worked with product, marketing, PR, UX, research ops, and now I'm working with engineering teams. So I've seen a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different pushback, a lot of different excitement for different types of research across different types of different parts of the business. And I have learned the hard way some things not to do, as I'm sure Ismail and Hannah have their share of war stories as well. So I am going to start, and I'll say I was having a nice chuckle to myself. I have some very similar learnings to what Hannah shared. So you'll see some similarities there. I promise we didn't plan our presentations together. Okay. So as we've heard already so far, there's a couple of big reasons why people tend to say no to research budget. And I hear a lot of different reasons that tend to fall into these two categories. One, I would rather spend my money on other things. Every business has a finite budget. It's really hard to say, let's slow down if that's the case we're making, to people who have the impression that research is slow, it's expensive, or in many cases, a lack of understanding how research is going to help you get the outcomes. And we've heard Ismail was just talking about tying those revenue outcomes to the research as part of your pitch. We also have some really, I also hear a lot of folks who maybe did research and it didn't help them, or they hired a consultant to do this really big project and it didn't translate. I've worked with a lot of companies where there's a project that everyone seems excited about, and then they actually go to implement it, and it doesn't really. There's a gap of understanding because maybe their level of awareness is not where they thought it was. So they want to spend their money on other things that they know, that they're familiar with, that seem like a surer bet. Now, the other one that I have heard quite a bit, I work with a lot of early stage companies. I work with a lot of visionary founders, a lot of people who built something that scratches their own itch. So I often meet folks who are pretty sure they are doing research already. And this one can be really challenging. So these folks may not even understand that they have gaps. And you might be able to tie your research to the gaps. And in this case, that can be a really, really challenging argument to make, because these people might say, well, I know the answer to that problem. Or I talk to customers all the time. Here's my notes. You might need a transcript, but you're getting somebody else's filtered notes. Or we already know our customers. Very, very common, especially when you're working with people who are, a technical founder building something for developers, for example. Now, as Hannah mentioned, I like to figure out a way to change the conversation. So instead of a little bit different from what Hannah was describing, I like to figure out a way that I can change the conversation and the culture of the organization so that I never really have to ask anybody for money ever again to do research. So this is a really challenging place to be in when we come to the table and we say, hey, this is the thing I want to do. I need, like we're saying, these are big numbers. I need 10K, 50K, 300K to do this research project, get these insights, then we can solve these problems. You're starting off in a defensive position by needing the one who you're one down because someone else needs something from somebody else. I like to take steps to set the company up so that there's so much internal demand for research. Everyone's awareness of how research helps them is so strong that you actually have so many people coming to you saying, I need help doing some research to answer this question. Can you help? And you have to start setting up your whole research ops systems to say, hey, if you need research from me, take a number. I got lots of projects going on. So how do we go about doing that? How do we change this conversation so that people are coming to us and we don't ever have to, go beg for those scraps? So the first, I like to take a couple of pages out of the change management handbook. So the first step to any effective change management strategies, and I'm a fan of, his name is John Cotman. So he's got his first name is John, a lot of really great work on some of these frameworks to how to shift that perspective, as Hannah showed in that graphic, or create that paradigm shift. And the first thing I like to do is create some urgency around the known unknowns. So regardless of the perspective that your team members have on research, regardless of what it's like to, what matters to different team members, everyone's aware of certain problems, and everyone is aware that there are certain things that are just causing the business trouble. And you can start to do some research on them, keep track of those questions, keep track of those gaps. And you can do this long before you need to do any research. You can start this today. So you can put a section in your Confluence or your Google Drive or wherever your team does their documentation. You can start to keep a library where you're keeping track of those problems and those opportunities that are coming up that maybe you can't answer, you can't address. Or maybe you can. Maybe you can say, I actually found some answers to these questions. And this is one way to start to bridge that gap, like Hannah was saying, of showing how expensive it is to not know the answer to these questions. And I think, Patrick, you might have, I'm not sure if you asked this question, or I may have misinterpreted it, but like Ismail was saying, we want to be able to dig in and estimate the revenue size of not knowing the answer to this question. And there's a lot of different ways we can do that, but quant research is still research. So if you have your Amplitude, if you have your is chart.io still around? Whatever you're using to collect your data, you can go dig around and say, this is the size of the opportunity. This is the size of what this problem is. And you don't even have to say, I need research to solve it. You can just talk about the problem. That way you avoid asking for research in a vacuum. So coming into a room with an expensive solution to a problem that no one else really understands, and you're waiting to mention that you actually need budget to solve it until the moment you're asking, it's really, really hard for humans to get excited about things like that, where we don't understand. It seems like a big shift, and it seems like we're going to have to make a big leap to something we don't grasp. It takes time for any human. We are all on the same team, but we don't always understand each other's perspectives. And we want to create systems that allow us to cultivate that understanding in our colleagues. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is create urgency around the known unknowns. I recommend creating a library of problems and opportunities in a single place that's easily shareable with team members. The second thing is to get really scrappy and start sifting the gold out of what you already have. So every person at every SaaS company that uses a support tool has access to VOC. I love the term that Ismail gave for this, that desktop research. You have research already. You have access to review sites. There is research available that you can get for the cost of a couple of hours of your time every day or every week. And then you can start to use the research that you already have to, again, cultivate that understanding, start to build up that familiarity of showing people what this research even is. We don't want to ever get to a point where people we push back against the how and the what, but that's because we don't really understand a lot of what this is. Like, what is research? Like, what's the difference between 5, 10, 50 interviews? How do we just come to those questions? This is like inside baseball that our stakeholders may wonder about and may worry that the wool's being pulled over their eyes. We can make it really clear how the process works in a kind of show, don't tell way as we're going. I will tell you my all-time favorite, most effective technique for getting buy-in on qualitative research is to take an interview. So you can go talk to a customer, do an interview yourself, and clip a 60-second section of that call. Maybe you even take one that's already in Gong. It's already a sales call. And you can pop that into Descript and then export it as an audiogram. Those are those squares that have the text that kind of lights up. And then you can start to share things like that around. And when I tell you, there are few things more compelling than actually hearing that voice of customer, their emotion, that heightened intensity of them trying to solve the problem that your business is very well positioned to solve. Few things are more effective than that in getting buy-in on research. So you can start to incorporate these things, sharing them in teams. You don't have to make a big deal. You don't, like Hannah said, you don't need to call it research. You can say, hey, look at this cool thing a customer said, or I heard a customer talking about this problem. This sounds pretty similar to something we're considering on our roadmap. And that way, by the time you're coming up to make that big swing for that really big project, you've already worked your way up. You've given somebody that time to understand and cultivate that understanding of what research is, how it works, allowing them to see how it works for their own needs and purposes, so that they've had that incremental growth. So it's not like they're going from 0 to 50K. Maybe they're going from, okay, I have a decent awareness and I'm starting to see how this could be valuable, and I might be willing to invest some more money on it. Another thing too is that it is really, really hard to get people bought in on using research, understanding research, getting to know, I don't know how many times have people asked you to listen to a meeting recording and a call recording and you want to, but an hour of a recording and a basic jobs to be done research project is 10 hours of recording. Even your most ardent supporters are going to really struggle to find those 10 hours to listen to those recordings. But everyone's going to hit play on that 60-second audio clip and listen to that really juicy customer feedback that you found exactly for them. Now, the third component of the third step in this kind of change management culture shift initiative is building a coalition around research by connecting these two things together to help your colleagues see what's in it for them. So one of the challenging things about buy-in is we often come to the conversation saying, okay, this person doesn't understand research, so I need to get them to understand research. And when they see that, they'll be excited to sign up for doing it. They'll give me the budget. They'll see that it helps them get outcomes, and then we'll all be in a better place. But in reality, the person on the other side of the table is saying and thinking to themselves, I have these priorities. I already know what's important this quarter. It's these metrics, it's these numbers. And if I'm going to make any progress on them, I need things that I can directly tie to them. So this person's coming to me asking me for research. or they want to spend money on discovery and insights on a metric that maybe isn't the metric that matters to me, I don't know, I'm having trouble engaging with this. What I like to do is say, hey, we are researchers. So let's go do some research on what's important to our colleagues and let's show that we're really invested in our shared success. So my stakeholder, my economic buyer, my VP, whoever the person is, I need to sign off and get that budget. I'm going to find out what really matters to them. And I'm going to make sure I document their problem statements and the metrics and problems that matter to them in my problems and opportunities library. And as I'm going around doing research, I'm going to make sure I find those customer support chats, those 60-second clips that directly support the things they're already excited about. So instead of getting them to say, okay, I care about activation is not working. Please look at my activation screenshots. Like, let's pay attention to this. But when they're over here saying acquisition matters, you might disagree on whether that's the right case, right metric to focus on. But you can go to them and say, okay, I found actually some really good research on how acquisition is being impacted. And I have some ideas on how we can use it based on what these couple of customers said. What do you think? And you can start to build that habit of saying, I'm finding the things that are going to help you get better at your job, help you reach your goals. So by the time you're going to ask for research that you need to solve your projects, it's not really something that's slow. It's not a hard sell. It's not something that you're asking, for you. It's something that person has already really started to see. Oh, okay, this helps me. This person did a little bit of research. They gave it to me. And now I have this better number. So it's not only, hey, this is tied to a revenue number. It's, I already know this works because they helped me with it already. So you do this enough and you do this enough times, you can really start to shift the culture of research around your company. I have found that it takes a lot more time to do this. This is definitely not the approach if you are trying to get buy-in on a single project like this week. But it can take about 3 to 6 months to build that really tight coalition of people who are really dedicated to using research. And then depending on the size of the company, 6 to 18 months to really have everybody starting to share VOC. With one of the teams, with the team that I've been working with for a little while now, I'm actually at the point where they're sharing so much VOC back to me that I have to figure out a better way of managing it because it's my systems are bursting at the seams. So this is by showing people what's in it for them and building that foundation really early on, you can make it easier for them to not only say yes, but proactively reach out to you. So a couple other things that you can do. Make sure you know who's in charge. Make sure you know who that economic buyer is. This is a mistake I made a lot early on, not knowing who needed to say yes. Play the long game, document as much as you can, keep a track record of how you're solving problems, really scrappy with the research you already have and where those problems are, and build those habits around learning what your teammates care about. Show research how it helps you, helps them. And the very last thing, to the extent that you can, learn how to do research yourself so that you won't need to ask for budget. So that in the event that you're stuck waiting for someone to sign off, maybe it is a giant project and you do need a specialist, but learn how to make sure you can answer a lot of the questions on your own. So that brought me back to the beginning instead of to my last slide. Oh, there we are. Thank you and good luck. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for listening. Can I answer any questions?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, great stuff. I took lots of notes here. And I'm glad that you shared the deck with us as well, and which we will share with everybody else as well. So 6 to 12 months to really make a difference. That's a little depressing, but
well, 6
reality,
to 12 months to get to that final point where you have the champagne problem of I need a research ops person now. About 3 months before you start to have your core coalition really aligned and excited about it.
I really loved your point about document wins. Like, we use research and got this win, so you can show it back. Remember when we did this and then we had this result? Yeah, wonderful. And I really loved what you said about show where the gaps are. And hey, we don't actually know this. We don't know what is the biggest pain point and whatever it is. And then it's like, oh yeah, we don't. Like, yeah, let's figure it out. Yeah. Cool stuff. Does anybody else have any question? Please post it in the chat. I have one question for you. So sometimes the researcher on the ground, whoever that is, doesn't know what the hippo, the highest paid person, thinks. What is keeping them up at night? What are they worried about? So if you say, "Hey, I want to make sure we're saying the right things on this page," and the hippo does just not care at all about what's being said, and have much bigger problems. How do we find out what the hippo's strategic problems are?
Yeah. Ooh. Well, I would say depending on the size of the company and how many tiers above you the hippo is. So if the hippo is, say, if the hippo is your boss's boss, so this might be a workable problem. But if your hippo is your boss's boss's boss who also lives in another continent, depends on how you're kind of allocating a lot of different tiers there. But I really advocate building the relationships with those people at those different levels well in advance of needing it. So you join a company, if you can, take a tour, meet everybody you're going to be working with. If there's anybody not on your list who you want to be on your list, go meet that CFO. Hey, I'm what keeps you up at night? I'm joining the team. What are the metrics that matter? How can I help you? So you want to show that you're able to contribute to whatever their problems are well before you're asking for something.
Yeah, totally. I'm thinking, I'm a small scale hippo. So, and I think about our strategic problems, like big problems, not like micro optimizations, but like macro things. And if somebody would come to me that, hey, I think I have an idea how to solve your big problem. We just need to validate whatever. And I'm like, hell yeah, go. Here's money.
Yeah. So the more that you can do that with figuring out what is that answer to that question, or what is the question that someone's trying to answer? What's that problem that keeps them up at night? We are researchers. We gotta go research our teammates and figure it out, and then we can solve those problems for them.
Beautiful. All right, Alli, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. I'll see you on the internet. Everybody, give her a follow on LinkedIn and Twitter and wherever you are. And see ya.
See ya.
Okie dokie. That's all, folks. That's Murder, She Wrote. Happy birthday. See you on the internet. Spring 2024, April 9 and 10. Peace out.